Dr. Grewal, thank you for joining in on CNN News 18. For the benefit of our viewers, let me introduce you. You've been an Indo-Canadian politician and a former Conservative Member of Parliament in Canada. A very, very warm welcome to you, Dr. Grewal.
Thank you very
Now,
much.
we are learning of the first comments from India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. He said that India has already informed Canada that if it had anything specific and relevant, New Delhi will be looking at it. It's been over a week since Mr. Trudeau made those allegations, and yet there's been no evidence. Where does this place Justin Trudeau at the moment?
I cannot comment directly because I'm not part of the government and I cannot comment on behalf of Justin Trudeau. But one thing I can say is that Canadian values, they gave lots of importance to right to freedom of speech, sovereignty, and justice, accountability, transparency, those kind of things. So it leaves Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to share the evidence, be transparent. At the same time, the Indian government has to be transparent as well. If the evidence is credible, so far the information is that credible information. But I think everyone deserves to see the evidence. If it can be shared, it will be a good idea to pursue for a transparent, proper, full investigation.
You don't think that the Prime Minister was shooting from the hip when he made such a massive allegation from the House of Commons, from the Parliament, without evidence? How would that place the relationship between the two countries at the moment?
You know, Canada and India has a long history of having very good relationships. But like any relationship, there has been ups and downs. I remember that in 1974, when Smiling Buddha tests were done, Canada was not happy. In 1998, when Pokhran 2 tests were conducted, Canada was not happy. I was, in fact, part of the delegation, which was the first delegation from Canada after the nuclear test to visit India. And
Right.
Indian government was very cooperative at that time. President of India, Dr. K.R. Narayanan, had given us a briefing along with his generals to get us the nuts and bolts of the nuclear, not only nuclear policy, but geopolitical situation with respect to nuclear weapons in that region. So we were informed and we played a significant role to ease the sanctions, to restore the diplomatic ties. And I was, in fact, at that time, Deputy House Leader as well as the Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. The result was very fruitful. The relationship between Canada and India after that, it went back to normal.
No, but are you saying that right now what we are witnessing is not the lowest and what you witnessed was the lowest back then?
I would say that because I had first-hand experience at that time when the diplomats were recalled, sanctions were imposed, and the senior level exchange of leadership that was banned at that time, I would say. So this is the second lowest in my experience.
Okay.
When I've been politically involved.
Dr. Grewal, is not the killing of Niger, that too in broad daylight, despite intel inputs from CSIS, a comment on Trudeau administration's own inability to tackle organized crime? Also, that includes the Canadian police.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Canadian police and Canadian security agencies, CSIS, they have been producing good results in the past. They are the prime organizations in Canada which are having an investigative mandate and gathering intelligence and then sharing the intelligence for decision making. I trust these organizations and I think they have international reputation. But on the other hand, whatever the information they could share as of today, and even Five Eyes, whatever the information those five countries mutually share with each other, I have faith in that the
Right,
organizations as well as the mandates.
reports are also indicating that there's been ISI involvement as well. So, would it not be fairly nascent to just give a clean chit to everything that is coming in through Five Eye or whatever claims have been made by CSIS? And the prime question again we are missing is, why was Niger not given security if CSIS had intel? A. B. We've seen the killing of Sukhtul also take place in Canada. I want to know from you, what does this speak of the current state of affairs when it comes to organized crime under the Trudeau administration?
You know, you might agree with me. I'm not privy to that information, and I'm not privy to comment on whether he was provided security or what was the level of security provided to him despite the warning given to him based on intelligence they had. But I can say something on behalf of Canadians on based on my experience, that Canada gives lots of credence to sovereignty. Canadian sovereignty is important to Canadians, like sovereignty of any nation is important to their nationalists. So any extrajudicial killing done on Canadian soil by anyone, including a foreign government, if that is true, that is an affront to sovereignty and democracy of Canada. Canadians have the right to defend themselves. Government has a responsibility to protect its citizens, and that's a viable, prominent goal of the government.
We speak at a time when Anthony Rota, the Speaker of Canada's Parliament, has resigned following the honoring of a Nazi veteran in Canada's Parliament. Canada has also admitted that the episode has brought much embarrassment to the House and to Canadians at the time of a standoff with India. How do you assess the timing of this resignation politically? And should this alone be the Speaker's responsibility?
These are two separate issues. They are not dependent on each other or correlated to each other. But
yes, they are.
Speaker Anthony Rota has resigned, and he has taken the accountability. I know that Speaker doesn't have that many resources to investigate any individual. Maybe we don't know the circumstances. Maybe it was done at a short notice. We don't know. But all politicians, doesn't matter which political party they belong to, they felt offended by this action, and they demanded the resignation of the Speaker, and the Speaker of House of Commons had resigned. So whether proper vetting was done, obviously not. What was the reason? We don't know yet. But definitely Canada need to learn a lesson from this incident.
Okay. Yes. The Baloch human rights group has expressed unease over lack of action surrounding the abduction and suspected murder of Karima Baloch. She was, as we all know, an exiled Baloch human rights activist who was living in Toronto. She had faced terrorism charges in Pakistan before finding refuge in Canada. What explains this selective outrage of the Trudeau government when we look at Trudeau taking a stand for the Khalistanis? Is it consolidation of the Sikh vote bank?
I don't take it a political gain for anyone. In fact, it is the people of Canada who are suffering because of the bad or thawed diplomatic relations at this moment. When the visas are not issued to Canadians, ordinary average people are suffering. Someone has to attend a funeral or a wedding and so on.
Right.
People are suffering. But on the other hand, of calling someone a terrorist or a separatist, I think there are two different definitions. Definition of a separatist is not mutually exclusive with the definition of a terrorist. Dalai Lama, for example, His Holiness Dalai Lama is in India. India has given the refuge to Dalai Lama, but Dalai Lama, in terms of another government, is having a different perception. So I believe that we can, if we go back, we can look at Canada's separatism. Quebec, a province of Quebec, the province of Quebec was going to separate from Canada. There was a referendum, but no Canadian called the separatists in Canada terrorist. So definition of separatist and terrorism or patriotism, they are different definitions. But abuse of human rights is having a serious consequence.
You
In Canada,
certainly have a point.
novelty, freedom of expression is allowed, and it is a
No,
welcome
no, but
value.
that is exactly what the External Affairs Minister in India has also said, that you cannot promote terrorism in the name of freedom of expression. Indian diplomats have been threatened. Indian consulates have been vandalized. There have been red corner notices also issued against certain Khalistan extremists like Gurpat Pannu. There's one more that has been issued. So, I mean, the definition over here should, there's no question of segregating that definition of separatism and terrorism. But having said that, let's talk about the political climate. The Conservatives are now maintaining their summer lead in the polls. According to fresh numbers from online survey by Leger, the Ipsos poll also indicated earlier that Poilievre is trouncing Trudeau as the best prime minister choice in Canada. Considering Poilievre has demanded more facts and evidence from Justin Trudeau, going by the support that is currently with Poilievre, what does it speak of how Canadians are perceiving the diplomatic standoff between India and Canada?
Right, good question. First thing first, I do not condone violence. And there are many Canadians who do not condone violence. Violence is not the way to go in this century. I think that is well understood. Second point about political polls are polls on a particular day. Our election is still 2 years away. Definitely, Pierre Poilievre is ahead in polls. His party, Conservative Party of Canada, of which I was a part, is ahead of the Liberals. Likability of the individual leader for prime ministership, Pierre Poilievre is ahead. But this incidence, Canada-India's relations, if we look into this issue, I don't think that there is any political gain. When the first day the statement was made, all opposition parties in the House of Commons, they stood by the Prime Minister. But again, how you tackle with the issue, they have a different approach. Conservative Party wants having a registration of foreign agents. A bill S237, I think it was introduced 2 years ago in 2021, but it was blocked by the government as well as their supporting party, NDP. Maybe that was part of the solution which the Conservative Party is proposing. So politically, different approaches by different political parties. But as far as sovereignty of Canada is concerned and protection of its citizens is concerned, all Canadians and all political parties are together on this agenda.
All right, Dr. Grewal, my last question. Now, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is known to be following in the footsteps of his own father, former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, who established diplomatic ties with China. A senior journalist from Canada, Daniel Boardman, has alleged that Trudeau started fight with India to cover up Chinese interference in Canada. That thought is also finding much resonance within Canada. How do you assess in on these beliefs?
You know, it will not be appropriate for me to comment on how Trudeau thinks or what Trudeau's policies are, but I'm entitled to say that I'm in favor of Canada-India strong relationships. I have played my part, and I look forward to having very strong relationship between the government to government and people to people. We have to have diplomatic solutions to many problems, which we need to pursue. We have lots of potential to work together. Geopolitical situation in the world in the last few years have changed significantly. And Canada and India has lots of potential to capitalize on. Both countries can, they are exemplary countries in the world in many ways. We are descendants of the British democracy, British rule. We are sharing common languages, common values. I believe that there is a huge potential to smooth out the relationships and move forward. I'm looking forward to moving forward and develop stronger relationship between Canada and India. We have a huge diaspora of India living in Canada who have contributed significantly in Canada. And there is a huge potential that we should capitalize and respect the relationship. Mutual respect is important.
That's something I completely agree with you on. And thank you so much, Dr. Grewal, for joining in. It's been a pleasure to speak to you over here at CNN News 18.
Thank you.